Hi, Steve Gillmor. This is the Gillmor Gang, the last Gillmor Gang for 2012. And at least I think it is. We've got a few people missing in action, but the ones that we do have are sufficient. In fact, they're better than good. Robert Scoble, welcome.
Hey, what's up?
I don't know.
I'm going to poke you on the show.
You know,
Whoa! Woo!
I'd say you have to drink a glass of wine every time you say that word, but I think that would be an incentive that you don't need.
Should I poke you or Tina?
I don't know what it means, and you know. All right, we're already out of hand here. Okay, joining us from I don't know where, he looks like a bad Santa, is Keith Tier.
Bad Santa's a good idea. I am in Tahoe. Look at this. I don't know if you can see. Look at that. Right on the lake. And I happen to know that Steve has been being poked by Robert since 2005.
Well, luckily, you're on a big delay here, so by the time your punchline rolls around, we're already back on your face. So it works perfectly. The other English chuckle is Kevin Marks. Welcome, Kevin.
Hi there. I'm still in San Jose with the ripe oranges behind me now.
Ooh.
Okay, so Robert Scoble, what's happening?
Poke.
What does that mean?
Well, it's this Facebook copy of an app called Snapchat. And Snapchat got really popular this year with teenagers because they could send little messages to each other and supposedly have them only be temporarily stored. In other words, it was great for sexting and doing naughty things that you didn't want your parents to see or whatnot, or other people. And Facebook, in 18 days, copied the app and improved it a little bit because it has real identity. Now, a lot of people are confused if they don't have an iPhone. It's only available on iPhone. A lot of people think it only does old style pokes, but now I can actually send Keith a new styled poke. So let me just do something here.
Got it.
What's that? Yeah, you got the old styled poke, but I can leave a little, hey Keith, this is your poke for the day kind of message, and then I can send that to him. And Keith, on your side, can you hold down the video button so that people can see what it looks like?
Wait a minute. I haven't got the app installed, so I've got to install it first.
Oh, I thought you had it installed because it let me poke you. It didn't let me poke Steve because he doesn't have the app. But anyways, so let's just send a little cute little videos.
When you get to my age, Robert, you don't do a whole lot of poking or sexting.
And I guess what I do is safe sexting, which is I don't have it at all.
Anyway, so Gigahome wrote a whole post about that this means that innovation at Facebook is dead because all they can do is copy something, and that's true, you know. And lots of other people have been trying to figure out if you can get around the 3-second rule of, you know, if I send a little text on Poke, you can take a screen capture of it, or and it warns me, by the way, when you try to do that. And so there's programmers who've gotten around the warning, and it's a lot of fun. It's a stupid app. It's the stupidest app I have on my phone, but
that means it's probably successful, right?
Yeah, it's fun. I put it on my dad's machine, and we'll see how it goes. Simon in the chat room asked, how is it different from what Google Plus Messenger or other things do? These messages you can set them to be temporary, so you can only watch it once or look at it for X seconds, and then it goes away. And so Kevin Marks says it's deliberately ephemeral, and that is exactly right. This is for some message that you don't want to stick around and don't want to be passed around on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or LinkedIn or, you know, Google Plus or Quora, right? This is for sexting.
Well, it's not really for sexting so much as it's a pushback against finding that everything lasts forever. You know, certainly my teenagers are very aware that stuff they post on Facebook is going to hang around for a while, and the college admission people are going to look at it. So they want another channel that isn't as persistent, so that they can use that to send stuff back and forth. And they normally use chat for that.
They already had.
It's just
They already
sort of
had
quick
ways to do that, though. This is. They already had texting, you're right, but
but there's also there's the if I send someone a photo, they may send it to everyone else as well. So you're reluctant to do anything quite as silly. Whereas with this, you are like, there's a much less chance of it being forwarded to the entire school.
Yeah, but they should be warned. On TechMeme right now is an article about Snapchat being able to, people getting around this stuff, and you can use a second camera and take a picture. So kids should be warned that this stuff can, if you send a picture that somebody else wants to pass around, they can. By the way, that takes me on to
sure, you can always take a photo of the device with the other device and that.
Yeah,
maybe
there's always a way.
They should be warned that as they mature, sending pictures of your naked body is not that attractive to the recipient.
Well, it's attractive to somebody because there's lots of it going on. This gets into what Randi Zuckerberg was complaining about, that she sent a message privately on Facebook and marked it as private and sent it to her friends. So not to her subscribers, to her friends. And somebody took a screenshot of that picture and then put it over on Twitter and caused a bunch of blogging behavior to happen. And then complained about that and said, what the hell, don't you know how Facebook privacy works? You're not supposed to take stuff out of Facebook privacy. And that caused a whole another round of,
I don't understand that one at all. What does it mean to take things out of Facebook privacy?
Well, if I send
it got forwarded. If you think of email, if someone sends you an email with a picture of themselves, you're not meant to forward it to strangers. But Facebook, there's ways to do that.
But wait a minute. What is the concept of forwarding to strangers all about?
Leakage from the access controls that were originally intended.
No, this is
That's
intended.
ludicrous. I mean,
no, it's not. It was not intended. I was on that message. That message was marked as private. It was only available to her friends or friends of friends. It was not a public message.
And then someone tagged her other sister, and that was then visible to her friends of friends.
The message was still private to that person as well. It was never a public message.
Right, but that's
never a public message.
But it's not clear unless you look at the tiny grey thing in the corner.
It's
absolutely not clear.
Absolutely clear. Let me show you some of these messages. Let me go to Facebook.
Look, there's a little tiny grey thing that's like 10 pixels square.
Yeah, what do you want it to be? A big red message? Like this message is public because it has a little globe on it. And let me find
and this message is private because it has, and this one has.
Of course, I'm going to break their privacy by showing it on Gillmor Gang if there is a public and private message.
Exactly. Be careful, Robert.
Yeah. You could end up like
I just screen grabbed
David
this
Gregory.
thing. I'm going to tell you how big it is. It's.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Anyways, there's a little there's a little icon.
It is 10 pixels square. It is grey. You cannot tell the difference.
You can tell the difference if you're looking.
I can tell the difference because I know to look at this.
A journalist should know the difference.
Oh,
Journalist. Now,
who are you referring to here?
Well, the person who retweeted it, the original journalist who took that picture and took it out of the private.
Journalist.
Do they have a little 10-pixel square indicator that they're journalists?
Yeah, they actually have a little icon called a news brand. I forget what news brand she worked for. But anyways, she took it out and caused this whole thing. I think this, and my answer was get over it, first of all, because this is, here's a little icon so you can see.
So you said that you sent a private message saying get over it? I don't think so.
I did. I sent a message.
The Schadenfreude part is that she was head of marketing for Facebook for several years and still doesn't actually get get what the privacy things do.
And Schadenfreude means what?
This privacy thing is very clear. If you see a little message to two guys, it's not to be
Here's
reshared.
the interesting thing. If you think about English language, private usually means just for you, but on Facebook, private means shared with some people that you chose. Shared usually means shared, but on Facebook it means public.
Yeah.
So the whole language has been undermined by Facebook's use of the words private and shared. There isn't anything called public on Facebook because shared is public. Hence Brian's question in the feed, are any pictures on Facebook private? No,
Yes.
they're not, because that would imply
Well-
they're just for you, like a private album.
Well, you can set them just for me. There is a just for me setting, but I'm not
Yes.
sure what that looks like.
You can do that. I have a lot of pictures that are just for me because my phone automatically uploads now to both Facebook and Google Plus, and all those pictures.
but I mean,
are-
you studied this stuff. I mean, you spend probably 79% of your available waking time trying to understand the privacy settings of this application.
No, I don't care about privacy at all. All of my messages are always public.
I know,
because
but
I
as
want
a service to your normal people.
As a service to normal people, don't put anything on the internet that you want to keep private.
That's exactly. So when you see the little red light, it's public.
Right.
If you see them holding the camera up and they're not talking into it, or they were pretending to talk into it sideways, it's public.
Now, this gets to where I was telling Randy off. I said, this is about to get 100 times worse because next year people like me are going to have wearable computers, cameras on our face, and we're going to be capturing images 24 hours a day.
Yeah, for a week, and then you're going to get sick of it.
No, I'll capture them whether you look at them or not. Isn't it?
That's true anyway. Yeah.
You're gonna see people panhandling for storage on the street.
By the way, the Ritz is
I work for storage.
Remember, you guys remember Justin, when Justin TV first started, Justin used to wear a camera on his head. Don't you remember that? Only that last like 2 months or something.
Yeah. Oh, Steve's right. I'm not going to turn on the camera all the time. First of all, we're going to have rules.
You're going to get sick of the glasses, and you're going to put them in a drawer.
No, I'm going to wear those.
Next to the compact, from
I guarantee you I
1995.
will wear the glasses for more than a week, maybe 10 days. Okay.
Okay.
But we are going to have new social rules where if somebody walks into a party wearing those glasses, we're going to ask them to turn it off, or we're gonna have a rule. We're going to have, this is not for wearable computing in this room. It's going to be like anti-smoking rooms. Take off your wearable computing if you want to come to my party.
So, but just before we leave the Snapchat photo thing,
Do you promise?
I think it is endemic that desperation is what's driving marketing decisions and product decisions, and the desperation is keeping engaged users on your service as opposed to anywhere else. And it feels as if mobile is driving a couple of trends. One, because you have to monetize at such a higher rate, more ads per page than you do on the desktop, you have to have engaged users who are using the apps a lot. And competition is taking the form of these little fiefdoms. Facebook's a fiefdom, and it needs to have all the apps that you might use. Google is becoming less of a platform company with Plus, more of a destination. Twitter has already moved in the...
You're breaking up a little bit.
And it's like the re-portalization from a business point of view. The re-emergence of destinations or captive audiences seems to be the underlying trend here, and it's all driven by the fear of mobile leading to declining revenues and ultimately failure unless you own the user.
Okay, so the bandwidth is sort of choppy intermittently for you, Keith, so try and compress your thoughts into less time.
Okay.
Thanks. And Robert, you want to comment?
I couldn't hear enough of that to really comment.
Well, it sounded like it's all about the money, and you need to be able to engage, aka own the user.
That is absolutely true, and it's going to get worse on that aspect too. I'm writing a book on heading into the age of context, and I spent a lot of time at Facebook a week ago. They are going to want to know everything about you so that they can not just serve you money, serve you ads, and monetize you there, but serve you everything and decide. And Google Plus is going to do it too, even though they insist, oh, we don't need to monetize our feed because we can monetize over here. But they're going to take your behavior and monetize you. And Twitter is going to take your behavior and monetize you. And LinkedIn's going to take your behavior and monetize you. Yeah, whatever.
I totally agree with whatever.
If you don't want to be monetized, stay off the internet.
Right. If you see the little red light,
or stay on a
monetize
server.
it.
Stay on a server that you own.
Yeah, but that's Arrington 2007.
Right, but we don't own any of these things, right? We're the product that's being sold to the advertisers. I don't own Google Plus. I don't own Facebook. I don't own. I do own my own WordPress blog, and a lot of people were angry at me for mostly giving up blogging last year. Although that's coming back too. By the way, that's being monetized too. Google, I assure you, is studying every word on my blog and putting it in the search engine. In fact, I know that for sure. And Facebook is doing the same thing, and Twitter's doing the same thing as soon as I link to it. So, you can say, well, I'm not being monetized. You're being monetized somewhere.
Okay, so can we move past the monetization question? What Keith called it was, in the chat room, the re-portalization of the internet. Do you want to, why are you trotting out the portal word here?
Just because before Web 2.0, the Yahoo monetization model was the norm. You were a media company with an audience. You sought to keep the audience as long as possible, doing as much as possible, and serve ads to them as often as possible with the highest possible CPMs. Web 2.0, and specifically AdSense and AdWords, led to a more distributed platform approach to monetization. It feels as if Facebook, Twitter, and Google are all pulling us back to, from a business model point of view, to a portal-style media company approach.
So in other words, where Google used to send you away as quickly as you got there, they're now no longer doing that. They're now trying to keep you and retain you?
Correct. And on mobile, that's crucial. On mobile especially, that's crucial.
Okay.
Of course, they don't want the desktop search revenues to decline.
Yeah, okay.
They will.
I'm trying to not drive it back
think
to...
about the future.
I'm trying to not drive it back to the issue of whether or not mobile is being appropriately monetized. I'm sure we'll get there, as we do every time. Kevin, what do you think about this? Do you think that that's what Google's doing now, is driving people or trying to capture people?
I think Google's trying to make sense of people, which is something they've been ponderously trying to do for a while. I think that the knowledge graph stuff is definitely very interesting from that point of view, in that they are trying to build this structural representation of things in the world that they can then try and make sense of and connect up with different pieces. And the search sidebar is part of that, and Google Now is part of that. It suddenly says, okay, I know where you are. Here's a bunch of things I think I know about you because you've searched for this stock or this sports team or this restaurant recently. I'll tell you how far things are away and that give you those things again. And it's trying to iterate towards making sense of what you might be looking for in future.
Okay. Keith in the chat room again says Google, Twitter, Facebook are all seeking to become destinations and sticky. I would suggest to you that that's not true. That they may be trying to do that, but I don't think it's going to be successful for them. I also don't think that the go ahead, Robert.
The way the engineers there talk isn't that, but they're heading toward the same goal. They want to show you, out of 20 items on your screen, they want 20 of them to be highly interesting to you.
Yeah, I agree with that, but that's about the user's time. That's about respecting our inability to be able to absorb information.
Totally agree with you, but if they do that better than Google Plus, you'll spend more time on Facebook. Or if they do that better than your RSS reader, you'll spend more time on Facebook. Or if they do that better than Twitter, you'll spend more time on Facebook.
Well,
or if
anything
they do that,
does it better than RSS reader. I haven't used an RSS
I agree with
reader
that.
in
That's
10
reason.
years.
There's a reason that on the Gillmor Gang we talk about where are we moving our attention to, and that's why we have such interesting fights about Facebook versus Twitter versus Google Plus or Flipboard or whatnot.
All right, so Twitter, I don't think that specifically is their strategy at all. Put it this way, I don't use Twitter that way. I separate the information that's coming on Twitter from the social cues that can be extracted or used to be extracted until they reopen it up or unportalize it to the third-party developers. The value of Twitter to me is the ability to be able to see a sort of instant and updating constantly real-time map of what the people that I consider to be authoritative or are connected to authoritative or interesting people are saying. That, if there's a news event that I hear about, usually through Twitter, the second order of information that I'm interested in is what do the people that I'm interested in think about this or don't. So, a lack of signal from people that I trust is just as valuable, if not more so, because it's very easy to be able to not read something because it doesn't exist, if you follow me.
So, Steve, I think of that. I think of that in this way. There is organic engagement where you want to engage with a thing and it serves some need you have, and that is really good. And insofar as anyone can produce products and features which do that, we all love it. And then there's what I would think of as more unnatural acts of engagement, where Facebook ads are a good example of unnatural acts of engagement, where they're letting you pay $7 to force one of your posts in front of somebody who probably wouldn't see it if their filters were the only variable. And increasingly, the problem of revenue is that it drives more and more unnatural acts of engagement and less organic engagement.
Okay, so you've immediately captured this and dragged it back to the discussion about revenue. So again, what I'm saying is something different than what you're saying. What I'm saying is that there is value in supplying a what's the word for managing aggregation. Kevin, please help me with my
Managing aggregation. What do you mean?
curation.
Curation.
There is
filtering?
value in curation. There is value in curation by an individual. There's even more value in, that I've derived from a cloud curation. In other words, the overlapping degrees of separation that comes from, say, 3 degrees of fan out. The value, let me compare it to the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, both of which I pay a certain amount a year to have access to it on mobile devices, for the most part. They are essentially to me, they are uber aggregators of information. Not only do they have an editorial process which tends to, although it skews either to the left or the right, depending on which of those two publications we're talking about, it tends to synthesize what's going on and make it absorbable by me much more rapidly than just trying to catch the flying tweets. So there's those two streams, plus the Twitter stream, plus streams like Jason Hirschhorn's Media Redefined stream, which I consider to be a tremendously valuable insight, not only across the technical space, but also across the media disruption that's going on. And maybe a couple of other things that have now been outlawed by Twitter. With those streams and push notifications that are coming in of the people that I follow that I have then selected for appearing in push notification on my devices, even when they're turned off or when they're quiet, that gives me an information stream that is much more efficient than any of the other alternatives. And that's worth paying for. I pay for it in terms of focusing on the iOS platform and moving them around via the reading list that we talked about last week. And so to me, the monetization that's going to occur, that's going to be most valuable, is this kind of subscription monetization, not the monetization of capturing. I don't want to be captured to a site. I don't want to be captured to Google. I don't want to be captured. I want to be able to absorb the information of multiple chunks of information. You're nodding, Kevin. You want to continue or disagree?
No, I want to agree. I think that's important. And the other thing is where you publish and where you republish is starting to become more significant to people as they see what happens when everything's held by one company. So the idea of you write something in one place and then send it out to Facebook and Twitter and Google Plus and wherever, so that people can see it from different places, but having it somewhere that you have more control over is valuable, or at least having it in more than one place, so that if one of them disappears, you haven't lost the whole thing.
By the way, it's a huge mistake to auto post things from one service to another, particularly into Facebook, because Facebook is not distributing those very widely, and they look bad, and people like me block them. Because I've already seen your item on Twitter, I want to see a different item on Facebook.
Right, but that's more of a that's a client side issue. You should have a thing that detects duplicates.
It's not a client side issue, because ultimately it's a political issue. And you just get all these
I'm not necessarily saying you want to automatically
everybody.
spray everything everywhere. I'm saying you want to make sure that they're not held hostage by one company. That's the hard part.
I agree with that, but I only manually copy things, and I customize them for each medium, because I believe the mediums now are starting to diverge a little bit. There's a look to an item on Facebook that I can tell instantly it's a tweet without even looking at the word, from Twitter. And obviously, if you try to copy a Facebook item that's longer into a tweet, it doesn't look right. First of all, it's truncated if you just copy and pasted it, but it just doesn't look right. You can tell that there's not a tweetness to it. It doesn't have a hashtag, maybe. It doesn't have an @reply. It has a real name on it, and so on and so forth. And on Google Plus, there's yet another usage case. I think it's a huge mistake for people to try to auto push this stuff around. I'm really happy that LinkedIn turned it off from Twitter. It dramatically made the feed on LinkedIn better.
I don't agree that it's a huge mistake, Robert, but I do agree it's a mistake. It's just not a huge one.
Okay.
Each of the services is
It's not like
but
it's not like
we only
murdering
have
your
so much
wife.
time to be publishers. So
And it depends a lot on
means
volume
is
as well.
that you
Yeah.
start defaulting to a primary channel, and then you only publish to the other channels by exception.
Well, it's also the thing that Instagram did right was having the little grid of I want to share this on XYZW platforms, so that you can take a photograph and at the point of publishing it say, yeah, that one kind of belongs on Flickr, that one kind of belongs on Facebook, and understanding that you're sent to multiple places. And that most of these share UIs assume that you're sharing it to one place. And one of the things Instagram did really, really well was have that little, there are 6 places you could send this. Do you want to make that decision at the point of publishing, which was smart and actually very well conceived there.
Yep.
Well, I think the push notification basically blurs all the differences between these
I wrote
streams.
an article this morning for TechCrunch, which they'll post sometime today or tomorrow, called Unnatural Acts, which is all about this stuff. But the bottom line, Steve, is I think I totally agree with your view of what the world should be like. And the article says that, but it's also important to say what is the world becoming like, despite what we want.
Right. Well,
And
I've never suggested
the drivers of that.
I've never suggested what the world should be like, because I consider it to be a waste of time. I have no idea what the world should be like. I'm hoping somebody else will figure that out, and I will be a fan of them.
Okay.
All right, what I do say is what I think is going to happen. So when I say that push notification is going to unify all these streams, I think that's going to happen.
I think that's true. I got my dad a new iPad, and the first thing we did was tune up his Facebook, tune up his Gmail, loaded his Facebook, loaded his Gmail, loaded a few other apps, and set up his notifications so that, when he's sitting on the couch, he'll see all my stuff. And that's how it's going to be centralized back on the device. But, it's really interesting by the way, when you do tune up Facebook and you put people into your close friend feed and your family feed, your notifications get better because on my screen it's showing me more notifications from my close friends. So like if Tina posts a picture, it'll come into my notifications, where my acquaintances, I don't see very many notifications from them. They have to get really popular first. I had dinner with Adam Helway last night, and he goes even further. The people he really wants to see notifications from, he manually goes to their account and says, show me all items from this person as notification. And that tuning of notifications.
Where did you do that?
You click on a person. So let me go to friends.
What? Facebook?
Facebook, yeah. Yeah. And you go to their settings. You go. You click on their. Let me show you. So you go to friends, right? And like first of all, you can I'm going to put Mark Benioff in my close friends list, right? That'll increase notifications. And by the way, see how it all of a sudden says get notifications here? Get my hand out of the way. Mm-hmm. It checked that box because I put it on my close friends, and then I think there's even further settings somewhere. Oh yeah, I can see how many updates, and now I'll get more updates from Mark Benioff. So if he posts something to his Facebook, it'll show up on my iPhone, my notifications feed, because I have the Facebook app.
That's the single most useful thing I've ever seen you show about Facebook. Thank you.
Yeah. That's the first thing you should do this weekend is go to the friends list. So facebook.com, go to your timeline, click on your friends.
I have no friends.
Well, okay, you have me. I know you're a friend. And then go through each of your friends and set them to either close friends or acquaintances. Here I'll put Danny Sullivan as a close friend because he's cool. And my son, I'll put him as close friend.
Yeah, this is where I run into trouble. I end up starting a list, and I go, oh, no, that guy, and then they're all close friends.
Make a choice.
And
put
then
them
right
on
back
one
where I
or the
started.
other.
But if you did that, it would, for me. I've got I don't know. I've got thousands of people on Facebook.
I have 4,500
followers. It's like 20,000.
I have 4,500.
No way I'm
you
gonna
can
go
only
through-
have 5,000. So don't tell me you have 20,000. You're limited to 5,000 friends. Okay.
No, I don't mean. I mean the people that fan your page or whatever, follow your page.
No. Don't worry about them. That's not inbound. You only have to worry about inbound. In other words, friends on Facebook doesn't mean that we are really friends, right? It means that I want to see your inbound on my feed.
Oh, I feel
That's all
better.
it means.
Okay, I feel better.
Yeah. Now, if you're on my
So
close friend list, by the way, you're on my close friends list, Steve and Tina. If you're on my close friend list, that means you're actually a friend of mine, and I want to now see not just
Actual
some
friends is what that means.
There you go. I've got
yeah, close friends,
1,976
friends I drink
of
with,
those.
you know,
Friends
friends,
and friends.
friends and friends.
And then actual friends, and then real friends.
Anyways, if you do that, if you go through and tune your friend list, your feed will get dramatically better, first of all, and your notifications will get better as well. And by the way, all the notifications that come in from your close friends have a little star next to them, which is really cool. Makes you feel good. And yeah.
I'm wondering if the next iteration of this is going to be really close friends. They're going to keep having to add new extra specialness markers to these as people, make them decay in utility over time.
Friends you've poked.
But that is what friends do. They decay in utility over time.
Facebook already. By the way, Facebook already knows who your real friends are because you message them, you poke them, you click like on their.
Yeah, it sends a bunch of suggestions. It says, you should make this person close friends. Like, yeah, thank you, Facebook.
It does?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does.
Thank you, great algorithm of deception.
Yeah. In
Well,
fact,
as Erwin Corey used to say, borrow from your friends, and if they have no money, then make new friends. But keep borrowing.
I was always told the only things you should not lend to your friends are books and girlfriends.
I don't know about that.
Yeah,
You'll never get them back.
spoken like a married guy. You know, girlfriends.
It's it's hard it's hard.
I was young in those days.
It's hard to share either when you're old because you don't have either. First of all your books are on your iPad, and I'm not giving you my iPad. And the other one causes you trouble.
Okay. So as far as we get away from poke, we still get poked. Then there's poked.
Poked and poked.
Go there.
Let's
Okay.
not go there. Okay.
So, you know, I'm just stunned. I mean, can you push tweets over to Facebook anymore, or do they stop that?
You can, but I block them. So
This is for my benefit. I'm just asking whether I can do that.
You can try that. In fact, let me show you what they look like. Hold on. Because Oriel does it. So let me see. Oh, yeah. Here you go.
I mean, you may need a third-party thing now because I think there's some mutual blocking nonsense going on.
Here's
That's
a
what I think.
tweet. It shows you via Twitter, right?
Uh-huh.
And see how that tweet has a hashtag in it? Hashtags don't make sense in Facebook. So that tweet looks lame. And by the way, it gets very little engagement because Facebook just does not push a lot of the crap on the system to your feed.
Yeah, but now we're getting into their algorithms and how they decide that they're going to, behind the scenes, help you to completely lose any kind of discovery model that you might have.
Well, you know, first of all, everybody is on all three social networks now. I mean, even Google Plus has what 200 million users now. I mean, if you're not on all three, I think you're a loser.
Ooh.
Or maybe you have a job.
And by the way, Dave Weiner.
Or maybe you have a job that doesn't depend on doing this for a living.
No, come on. When you're not on all three, you've made an explicit choice. Like Ryan Block and Dave Weiner are two of my friends that are not on Facebook. And they made an explicit choice. Ryan's writing a New York Times article about why he quit Facebook, and that'll be an interesting topic for next week's show, I think. And Dave Weiner did the same thing. He doesn't want to be part of the Facebook social system. He doesn't want to be monetized, so he publishes on his blog.
He doesn't want to be monetized.
Yeah, he doesn't want to be studied and prodded and poked and liked and distributed and chatted with. He doesn't like all that stuff. In fact, he turned off comments on his blog. He doesn't want to. Well, he doesn't want to have to deal with people telling him off.
Right.
So he chose not to be on Facebook because
I mean it's a choice. I don't know how that helps his gathering of information.
It's not just gathering of information because a lot of stuff is happening on Facebook that does not happen in the open web, but it hurts his distribution. So it hurts his voice in the world of technology because he's not being heard by I don't know, however many people would subscribe to him out of 1 billion people that are on Facebook.
Right, and then how many people would have tweaked their I'm not interested settings to the point where some magical algorithm would have filtered it so that he doesn't come through anyway.
But people like me would have seen it and shared it and pushed it around. Mm-hmm. And he says enough interesting stuff that he would get a sizable audience very quickly on Facebook. Just like he has.
Robert, what do you think about a publishing tool that lets you publish to multiple distribution networks? Let's call them Facebook, Twitter, Google.
I have a feeling those
publishing, but giving you control to choose to publish to one or more of them simultaneously, so that you don't have to publish many times.
I have a feeling those are always going to appear lame. It's going to be like writing lowest common denominator code. It's never going to let you take full advantage of the things that each platform has. You're never. I mean, what are you going to do? Put a hashtag in there, and then it only works on Twitter, and it works differently on Google Plus, and it might actually embarrass you on Google Plus if you do it wrong. And then it brings in some lame ass hashtag onto a Facebook message, which makes everybody know you're automatically pushing content and you're not participating there. Part of
well, no, you could translate the hashtag to the Facebook page for that thing if there is a Facebook page for that thing. It just the tool needs to be smarter.
Okay.
Did you notice that? Did you notice what I did in the feed on friend feed? I put some hashtags. Friend feed knows that they're hashtags. Interestingly enough, and it feels to me as if hashtags should be something that we all have an interest in making universal, because we all benefit from explicit keywords, if you like that.
Well, I think hashtags are a universal namespace. That's part of the value of them. Unlike because that's a domain-specific namespaces, the hashtag is a global one. It works on Twitter. It works on just elsewhere.
Ats are actually more cross-platform. If I reply somebody on Google
I think hashtags are the ones that are broken. Not at messages are hugely valuable on any service.
The value on a particular service, they don't bridge between services well, because translating them is tricky.
They don't need to bridge. If it's true, as Robert says, that we're on all three networks, then our brains can process the fact that there's an ad message that's on Facebook without feeling confused.
No, I agree with that. I think the value of the at tag is that the Twitter namespace can travel outside of Twitter and still be recognizable and actionable.
Exactly.
And that's why Google uses the plus, not the at, because that also gives them the same benefit.
Well, actually,
Facebook
they use
doesn't
both,
have one of those.
and it means the same thing.
You have to use a URL for Facebook.
Yeah.
Well, they accept them as They accept them as typing. If you type at in Facebook, then it understands that you're trying to do a name, and then it auto-completes to a Facebook thing and makes a link. But it doesn't propagate that when it gets sent elsewhere. Whereas Instagram is smarter about this to some extent, in that if you sign into Instagram with your Twitter, so it knows the translation, it will do the translation for you when it propagates to Twitter. Whereas if it doesn't, it will delete the ad. So if you at someone who doesn't have a binding between the two accounts, it'll delete the at and just turn it into a name.
Is that true? Because
yes.
People use different ats on different services.
Yes, but because it understands the mapping between the ats. Because you can sign into Twitter with Instagram, it knows what your Twitter handle is, it knows what your Instagram handle is, so it can smartly translate between them. If it doesn't know, it deletes the ad.
Now that's pretty cool. I'm actually hoping that more services use the Instagram model that you just said, that it actually hooks together the to other platforms properly.
But in the meantime, take a look at remember the Intel Inside logo.
Yeah.
Well, that's what the ad message is. It's an Intel Inside logo. It's a at key tier logo. Logos are instantly processable. I mean, if you break up into, what is the term for the amount that you have to pay for a citation in an advertising sense? Something costs $78. What is it?
$7. You mean?
Yeah.
That?
What is that term?
That's how much you
I'm
pay
losing
on
my
Facebook
mind.
to get yourself.
It costs you a certain amount of money to get a keyword. What is that called? Keyword, I guess. The cost, the dollar amount.
If you're buying a keyword on Google, you mean?
Yeah. What's the term for the amount of buying a keyword?
It's the bid price.
What, CPM? What do you mean?
Yeah, CPM. Thank you. So if you calculate the CPM across these various products, ad messages is probably somewhere in the middle between some sort of broadcast citation and something that's very specific and targeted. That it's halfway in between two different forms of advertising, and as such will be accepted by people that are trying to understand it. I mean, I think Robert's attitude is that looks messy or confusing on Facebook, but
it's not confusing. It signals to me that you don't have a clue about how to post to Facebook, and you're never going to show it to Facebook. So why should I take the time to read you?
That's me. I'm clueless.
So why should I comment on your item? Why should I +1 it? Why should I try to engage you? Because you're auto posting from somewhere else. So
what if I don't want you to? What if the purpose of my message is to filter out people that want me to +1 it?
I already told you what I deal with it. I deleted all tweets. I don't see them on Facebook, period. Therefore, I don't have to engage with them. But I deleted them because they sucked.
No, you deleted them because you already got them on Twitter.
That's part of it, but it sucks. A tweet coming into Facebook or a Google Plus message coming into Facebook would suck. You know, if you can't take the time to manually handcraft an item and come over and check your Facebook feed once in a while, I can tell that. And it's not worth my time engaging with you, and therefore I'm going to try to delete that stuff from my feed.
Well, somehow we've overcome this roadblock. Because I never go over to Facebook, and I don't do anything over there, except what I can do automatically.
Well, you suck.
Yeah, you suck.
I'm proud of it.
And you suck for not going to Google Plus, and you suck for not going to LinkedIn.
I go to LinkedIn when they send me email and tells me that something important's happening over there, and I go there and nothing important is happening, and I go, oh. And then it usually takes me about a month to remember that there's nothing going on there, or forget it, and then I go back.
Yeah.
But the deeper thing that we're talking about here is as the world moves towards these either walled garden or re-portalized namespaces with their own syntax and semantics, at the same time you need linkage. Otherwise you lose all of the upside that the internet gave us. What is the right way to think about these namespaces? Which ones are universal and horizontal? Which ones are vertical yet addressable? And which ones are truly walled gardens? That's a really important set of questions for product architects in Google and Twitter.
Well, I
and
think you've hit on something.
Agree with each other.
You've hit on something
mutual
there.
Benefit.
You've hit on something there, sort of in reverse, which is, I think that these cross signals, these so-called suck signals, are in fact the only thing that guarantees a more heterogeneous web or network. Without these outliers, you have nothing to distinguish the networks from except their individual silo and constituency, which of course is the least attractive aspect of each of these networks.
I think what the other way of saying what you just said was that each network is going to differentiate more in 2013 and is already starting to do that. Because if Twitter looks exactly like Facebook, why do I need to use Twitter, right? And if Facebook looks just like Twitter, why do I need to use Facebook? If Google Plus looks just like Facebook, why do I need to use Google Plus? Because Facebook already exists and all my friends are on Facebook. Google Plus has to find a reason to exist separate from copying just Facebook. By the way, Flipboard shows how this stuff is going to work at some level. I put in all my social networks. So here's an item from Chris Perillo that's posted on LinkedIn, and it has a little LinkedIn logo to it. And here's another one posted on Twitter from the Gates Foundation, right? And that's why I use Flipboard, because Flipboard's algorithms are able to pull the coolest stuff from 20 different networks and bring it onto my portal. This is the modern portal, really. And I think Flipboard in of itself is going to improve it next year. In fact, I've seen some cool stuff that they're going to do, and they're going to add in a little bit of human curation, which is going to be interesting to see how human curation comes into this.
Oh, they're going to allow that now? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
This is why I think Flipboard sucks. Is that they've never allowed the individual to be able to control the environment.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean,
that won't be,
it's
that won't
very
be true by the end of 2013.
Well, that's where platforms and looked at as software platforms and hardware platforms affect the future. I think the mobile device as a hardware platform, or two hardware platforms, the Android one and the iOS one, have the ability to solve many of these problems. We always talk about the notification and alert stream as being a symptom of that, whereas the walled gardens just become contributors to that and can't really solve it due to their competition with each other and their attempts to be silos.
Well, I agree with that. That's why I say that what Robert showed today with the notifications for Facebook is the first time that I've seen any reason whatsoever to actually use Facebook. Because it basically multiplexes the Facebook stream, and then by defining who so-called close friends are, and then adding notifications, you have these diminishing numbers of push notifications, which is pretty much identical to what I've done with the notification stream on Twitter.
Yeah.
Got about 150 people, 170 people like that. That's winnowed down from about 500 that I follow, 400, and it's great. We get track back, then we're all set.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else going on?
Oh, there's lots. I've been building a lot of stuff on Google Plus and Facebook, and I've learned a lot about how they work. I have a new list that I opened up this week of 900 entrepreneurs, which is another advantage, by the way, of Facebook. I can't do that on Twitter or Google Plus because both of those systems limit me to 500. Kevin, you say that you don't follow me on Twitter because I'm too noisy. You have not followed me on Twitter for a year then, because I've posted very little.
I haven't followed you on Twitter
for
several years because you were way too noisy.
Yeah, well, I'm a lot less noisy on Twitter lately because I've moved a lot of my minutes into Google Plus and into Facebook.
So are you asking him to follow you because you're not doing anything there now?
No,
I mean, it makes sense, but
in fact, I think I'm more noisy now because I'm less noisy, because all I post now to Twitter is my links to Facebook and Google Plus.
You're more noisy because you're less noisy. I don't.
Yeah,
understand.
because there's less value there. But whatever floats your boat. That's what's cool about this stuff. You'll still see me because anybody you're following is going to retweet my good stuff anyway. So, this week I spent a lot of time on my family's computers, and I did a lot of tuning on Google Plus. I'll do a separate video on that because I don't want to waste everybody's time. But there's several tools that you need to turn on and several settings that you need to change to really make Google Plus rock. It's amazing, even for a non-public person like my dad, how much promotional email he already gets to his Gmail, and how much gets blocked just by turning on something like Google Smart Labels, which if you click on settings in Gmail and go to Smart Labels and turn that on, go to Labs, and then look for the feature called Smart Labels and turn that on, how much stuff gets caught in the promotional feature. It's really crazy.
All right, but that's not Google Plus. That's Gmail.
Well, it's all mixed together because what we're doing by spreading out into these 4 services, we're causing more email to come into Gmail. Most people, by the way, leave their email notifications on for each service they join. So they get hundreds or thousands of new messages into their Gmail, which keeps them from seeing anything important into their Gmail. And there's ways to solve that, but most people don't even think of looking around and solving that.
I agree with you that gets very noisy. On the other hand, it's right now, given the early stages of notifications, it's the only way that I get to see all those other streams is by bringing them in through email and then filter.
But you can filter them into a folder so they're separate from your important email from your bosses and your friends, right? And that's what the Smart Labels feature allows you to do if you know how to set it up a little bit. But
how does that affect notifications? Is what I'm asking.
Well, it cleans up your notifications because you don't see them twice. Because a lot of times when somebody posts to Facebook, you'll see it as a Facebook notification. Then you'll see the Gmail notification, which gets come up as a Gmail notification. It's really, really pretty crazy. And if you remove those into separate streams, then your notifications on Gmail get cleaner. And certainly you won't see all the stupid stuff like, when Macy's is Gmailing you a promotional email, because you don't need to see the notification for that.
Right, but
I played around with the Google Plus preferences this holiday as well, I was amazed that the defaults on Google Plus
Yep.
are extremely bad at making sure you have an enjoyable experience. You end up getting emails that are really inane from lots of people. But I agree
Yes.
with Robert. If you've got the time to go in and change them, you can make them a lot better. And the same with Facebook.
Right, but this is the second
But
time
you've
now
got to
that I've
admit
heard.
that the amount of time and knowledge you need to make all that work is not something that most normal people are going to put in.
I
And
know.
the defaults are always the most liberal in the sense that the user gets the most notifications possible from the service.
Well, I think there are
Which
two
means
reasons.
they get pissed off.
There are two reasons why this is a good trend. One is that people who can figure out how to do this and spend the time to do it, if there was the ability to be able to push that stream out as something that was curated so that it could be absorbed by other people, that would be very valuable. And then obviously you could take those signals and aggregate them and come up with a consensus about what's important, and then subscribe to that. Of course, that's not available right now, but Google could probably do very well by attempting to do that. That's number one. Number two, this is the second time on this show that I've heard Google Plus and Gmail talked about as though they're the same thing. I don't understand that. Was that just a slip of the tongue, Keith?
Yeah, I meant Google Plus.
Wait, say it again.
Sorry.
You mean Google Plus, and you're talking about Gmail.
It was a slip of the tongue. I didn't mean Gmail. I meant Google Plus.
Well, the thing is that a lot of people experience Google Plus as part of Gmail because they've had it turned on for them by default by Google. So a lot of the Gmail users have all these things appearing and not quite sure where they're coming from.
And that red box at the top of Gmail that has right now 34 in it, and here I'll show it to you. That box is the same on Google Plus, which I'm on right now, as well as Gmail, which I'm on right now. So
But if you're on Google Plus, you're not seeing your Gmail, are you?
if I'm on
That's
Gmail
true,
right
Stu,
now,
but it's not true the other way around. On your Gmail,
Yeah, on
they
Gmail
do
you see
put
the
all
Google
your
Plus.
Google Plus circles
Unless you whack it over the head.
designate messages from them, but only in your Gmail messages. They just use the same groupings.
So in other words, you have to specifically go. There's no sort of all that aggregates both Google Plus messages and Gmail, correct?
Correct. Although there's a whole discussion there about the relationship between messaging, communications on the one hand, and social networking on the other, and whether they are going to, converge or separate. And Google obviously is experimenting with that question.
Well, I think they're experimenting with trying to, put everything under Google Drive, which isn't an experiment; it's their business model. But that doesn't mean that it makes any sense. To your point,
when I meet people in airports and I sit next to them, a lot of people use Facebook or Google Plus through Gmail. That's when I talked to him. I was like, why don't you use a Facebook app? It's like, I don't need that. Everything comes into Gmail. It's like, wow, that is noisy. But a lot of people do it because that's the default that these guys have set up. So they spam the shit out of your Gmail or your email client to get you to click on messages from your mom that you don't even know where they come from anymore. Or the normal people don't know where they come from. I know where they come from because it says from Facebook, and I turned them off. But yeah,
I don't do that because Gmail sucks on mobile. I mean, it's just very hard to deal with the complexities of Gmail in a small mobile screen.
The new Gmail client, by the way, the new Gmail app is very, very nice.
It is, but it's still too much in too small a space to use it as your primary management interface.
I don't know what world you're living in, but I answer a lot of email through my little client here.
I just use the built-in app on Android. I use the email app, and on iOS I use the Apple Mail app. And
there's
they both are sucking content out of Gmail. Gmail is where my mail goes, but I pull it into those apps.
There's a reason
on IMAP.
There's
it's
two
just
reasons.
An easier interface for me, anyway.
There's two reasons that you need to turn off your Apple email. One, if you get your phone stolen and somebody is able to hack into your device, they can get into all of your email. Not true in the Gmail client, because I'm using two-factor authentication, and the minute you steal my iPhone, I'm going there and turning off my client. And even if you hacked in past the lock-in screen, you cannot get to my email. Two, the notification.
Not a big fear for me. It doesn't scare me. Even if someone stole my whole stuff, I wouldn't care.
Okay, fine. You might say that, but look at how the hackers got through the Wired reporter's Matt's life, because they had access to his Gmail. Two, the notifications are real time, where the Apple ones are not, and they're more in depth and they're more controllable, and it's that is becoming, and it uses less battery power. So I've turned off.
I'm not really against. I'm not against Gmail, Robert. I'm very specifically. I'm saying. I'm actually repeating what you were saying. The Facebook client, or the Google Plus client for that matter, or the Twitter client on mobile are good management interfaces for those environments. Gmail really doesn't replace them. It could have. I'm as astounded as you are that you have friends who use Gmail as a management interface.
I didn't say they were friends. I said they were people I met in airports.
Oh.
But there are lots of people who use email as a management interface because it's become their default to-do list, and that's a habit people got into, and we need to try and get them out of it.
They don't know how to get it out of it, because they don't even know what I just said when I said to go turn on smart labels in the labs feature. They don't know what a labs feature. First of all, most users, out of 1,000 users, how many actually go and click on settings on any of these things? 5, 10? I talk to family members. They
of the people on this call, how many do it? Only
I
you.
do it all the time, because I
do it.
I like doing.
So I used to work there.
Come on, the joke required only Scoble to say that he did it.
Yeah. I like the way these emails look, by the way, better in the Gmail client. The Gmail client is really pretty nice overall. It has its problems still, but it's better than the built-in Apple client.
Yep.
So, Keith, you think that email is still relevant?
I think it's not irrelevant. I think it's the center of the world for almost everyone in the world who uses mobile or desktop, and way bigger than any of the social networks. But it's problematic, and it needs to evolve and change.
I would say that email is a transitional tool on the way to notifications.
Possibly, yeah, that's possibly true.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I use it.
I mean, you know, my email, probably 1 in 100 I actually need to read. And the other 99 are, you know, a big group of them are attempts to engage with me from vendors or services that I really would, if I could be bothered, I'd go and find a way to block them. I just can't be bothered to put the time in. So I end up not really using email as much as I used to.
I guarantee if you give me an hour and let me tune your Gmail, you would use Gmail as much as you used to, because there's 3 things if you turn them on and pay the $20 for Sane Inbox, and turn on just the 2 of them, the free ones, the smart labels, and then turn on other inbox. Just turning those 2 things on, and then changing some of your label settings so that it removes all that crap from your inbox will dramatically make email more useful again to you.
Well,
I'll tell you what
I think that's true, but I think
I really engage with a lot. I start to classify them in my head. You know, someone might be a Facebook person, someone might be a Google Plus person, someone might be an email person, someone might be a voicemail person. I guarantee you turn on those 2 things. Everybody I've done that to. In fact, several people have written blog posts about how dramatic it makes the difference on Gmail. You turn on those 2 things, and then you go through your label settings to remove, to hide all of the any email that's labeled in to those inboxes, and you are going to have a much better experience with Gmail. It is astounding to me how much crap comes into the average person's email box. I did this to my son, who claims he doesn't use email, and he had thousands of promotional emails in his inbox. And you turn that on, and it's like, wow, I can see important emails again. It is astounding to me how big a deal it is. And by the way, we're going to get this kind of technology on Facebook and Twitter, on Google Plus in the next 12 months. It is too big a user case
for these guys not to turn it on.
Okay, so
Maybe there's a good abstraction there. I was going to say, maybe there's a good abstraction layer there. That's possibly a startup. It's called Tune My Feeds. And it's kind of a layer on top of email, and Facebook, and Google Plus.
It's a service.
It's kind of what, it's what Technorati wanted to be.
I was sitting with Ohm, and he says, I hate these things. I hate Facebook. He says, first of all, I don't trust Facebook, which is a different problem. But I hate Facebook. It doesn't bring me anything useful. And he says, man, you should offer a executive service to help tune people's feeds. I'm like, how much would you pay for that? But if I save somebody like him, 10 minutes a day, how much is that worth to him over a year?
Depends how much money he's got.
He has quite a bit. He has I don't know, 50 people working for him or something crazy like that. If I save him 10 minutes, or save a guy like you 10 minutes a day, that's a huge amount of value.
right, and that's where the business model is. It's not in portalization.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so we've got about 10 seconds left in the year. Let's go around, and I want to hear what you think were your top 10.
10? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, let's see if you get one. Start with your top 10. Start at the most important, and when you get down there around 8, I'll probably change the subject.
Top 10 what, though?
Exactly. Top 10 what? Just what do you want to talk about 2012? What are your top 10 things that you want to talk about? Let's start with you, Keith.
Number one.
What?
Number one, the end of the desktop is in sight, meaning laptop, and therefore, 2, the end of ad-based internet revenue. Therefore, number 3, the growth of the user in control on mobile. 4, the need for brands and services to get used to that and think of new innovative apps and services with models that can work in that environment. 5, I've run out.
Good. Kevin.
Yeah, I go along with the transition between
What's the most important thing?
desktop, laptop, and mobile. That is really important. That's hugely significant. The other is the mainstreamization of HTML5. This in 2012 really happened to the point where it's the thing that you use to write things that work everywhere. To the point where Microsoft put a new UI on their operating system specifically for apps that do that. That was huge. Let's see what else. Notifications becoming available on iOS as well as on Android suddenly made a lot of people pay attention to them, and they're also filling up with spam. We've got to deal with that as well. What else is big? Well, that'll do me for now.
Okay.
Next.
Robert.
Well, I'm working on a book on context, which is wearable computers, sensors, big data, social networks, and location all mashed together to make highly personalized.
So you're writing
systems.
a book about everything. That's great.
Everything.
But so everything is number one?
Everything. Number 2, Google Glasses. They have me just hot and bothered, and continuing to be hot and bothered about them. Number 3, notification tuning. I think that's going to be a bigger and bigger problem for people as they. I mean, just in the last minute, 3 notifications came up on my screens, right? And we're going to need more and more systems to tune those things and get rid of, show us only the important ones at the important times. That's going to be even worse with these Google Glasses on, and they're going to drive you nuts if you start seeing as many notifications as you could get. What else? TV. We haven't talked about TV too much, but I bought my dad an Apple TV, and that's going to be an interesting experiment to see how he uses it, and see what I'm going to see at the Consumer Electronics Show in a couple weeks.
I agree with that one. I think TV.
No cheating. No cheating.
In fact,
no, he had his own
show
things.
called 2 Screens in the Cloud.
You're
and
cheating.
TV, where there is no third screen, the laptop and desktop, and talk about that.
You're cheating.
Yep.
You already went to 5. So that's your 5th one? Or are you cheating?
Yeah.
Are you going back to 1? Which is more important to you? What you just said or desktop?
No, desktop's the most important.
good.
The
Thank
end of the
you.
desktop, but
All right,
the survival of TV and the prospering of TV kind of fits into that.
And then the move to open is going to be a big trend in 2013. And something I'm really noticing that Google Plus, or I'm sorry, Google Android is seeing new kinds of applications on it that I have not seen on iOS, and that is due to the openness of that platform, and that is going to be more and more attractive to me and a trend that I'm going to watch, and that's going to be true in cloud computing. So the company I work for is watching that very closely. It's going to be true on mobile. It's going to be true on social networks. All of what we talked about today was getting around the closed wallness of all these things and trying to move, messages from Twitter to Facebook, and whether that's a good thing or not. And what else do you want?
No, that's it.
That's it?
All right, so here's mine. Number 1, AirPlay.
Apple TV.
No, AirPlay.
Okay.
Okay, because AirPlay is going to extend from Apple TV to whatever Apple TV becomes. It's I'm already looking for how to use AirPlay basically interchangeably with some sort of console, some sort of switchable capability that I can control from whichever device, which is typically the iPad mini. Number 2, iPad mini. Easily the most important product on the market because it subsumes much of what happened with Nexus 7. It blows the Amazon strategy away. We don't even need to talk about Microsoft. Notice we haven't talked about Microsoft in the top 5 of anything that we even are thinking about. So that's number 2. Number 3, I totally agree about notifications. I think that is the omnibus, multiplexed, grand central of the next era, and that feeds right back into AirPlay because AirPlay is going to be the synthesis of all of the signals that are coming in, both text, audio, and video. And there's probably something else that's interesting. All right, so last question. Predictions, and by predictions I don't really mean what you want to see happen, but what you think is going to happen.
The one thing for me is I'm here in Tahoe, and the place I'm staying has DSL, but it's only 256K up and down. So I'm actually on this call using my iPhone in the personal hotspot mode. And as I'm doing that, my data plan is getting sucked up. I have 10 gig a month on my family plan on AT&T. I had to up it to 20 gig just because I watched 3 movies whilst I was here streaming to my Apple TV via this. So I think that mobile bandwidth costs are going to have to come down if the carriers are going to be able to cash in on the opportunity to replace wired broadband with mobile broadband. The bandwidth is there now to do that, but the costs are prohibitive.
Okay, but remember, I asked you not what you would like to have happen, but what you think is going to happen.
We're going to get fucked.
Okay, Kevin.
No, I think that we're going to have something's going to come to a head about this sort of nickel and diming us for bandwidth thing. I think that is going to happen next year, and part of that will be led by the Google Fiber initiative, and everyone going, "Wait a minute, you can do that," and that stuff spreading out. But also, as people start using LTE and try and do the things that they're used to doing with their PCs on it, and they're going to get screwed like Robert did the first time he tried it and tried doing this show on it and used his entire data plan up in one call. That's going to happen to more and more people, and that's going to cause some pushback on that sort of assumption they can tax us for bandwidth that hard.
Okay, so you're saying that Robert Scull trying to be first at everything is going to be driving what actually happens?
No, I'm saying that as these things get better and better cameras and video, and we're able to send big chunks of video around to all these different people, we're going to use that as a natural part of the thing, whether it is Snapchat or Skype or whatever, or we're going to start watching media on these things as well. And then at that point, being billed for every megabyte of bandwidth is going to make these companies be forced to re-examine that. It's going to be like when they all went from charging you 10 cents for every text to giving you enough free a month that you don't ever hit that barrier again. We're going to hit that for some of this bandwidth stuff.
Right.
That's going to be a problem for the Google Glasses, by the way, because if you turn on a picture every 30 seconds, how fast are they going to eat through your data plan? That's going to be a big problem.
Oh no, I had that happen.
Not to
me
mention
in
battery
London.
life.
Because I had that happen to me in London because I was taking photographs with my phone and it was uploaded to the G Plus, and the SIM I was using suddenly went, "Oh, you just exceeded your daily limit," after I'd shot 15 photos because it was sending the full
Right,
response
but
up.
that's manually hitting the camera button once every n minutes. These glasses are going to be able to shoot live video. I mean, they showed that off already, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so according to Keith Tier, we're screwed. That's his prediction. According to Kevin Marks, your prediction again?
So my prediction is that it's going to be, because of the transition from desktop to mobile, it's going to be the year people revolt against the carriers for billing us per byte.
Revolt against the carriers. Okay, good. Now I have something to argue about. And Robert, your prediction?
I'm sorry,
Your prediction.
my prediction.
Not what you want to have happen, but what you think is going to happen.
More data, more wearable computers, more sensors.
In some quantifiable way, because Google Glasses is going to ship?
Oh, God. Doubling, all four of those are going to double within the next 18 months. So today, Twitter, in fact, add in the number of points of data about location, that's number 5. All of those will double within the next 18 months. So Twitter is seeing 400 million tweets a day. That in 18 months, that'll be 800 million tweets or more. Take number of sensors on us, around us, is going to double in the next 18 months, if not more. Number of wearable computers that we're wearing, like the Nike Fuel Band, Jawbone Up, Fitbit, the Google Glasses, those are all going to double in the next 18 months, if not more. So, yeah, those are the 5 trends I'm watching.
Okay.
And AirPlay will be more used, and all copies thereof. Google, Kevin, what's the Google AirPlay competitor? I keep forgetting it.
Can't remember his name either. Sorry.
It's not DLNA.
There's a clue there.
Yeah,
Therein lies everything you need to know about Google marketing in that dilemma.
Absolutely.
It's not about marketing. It's like saying that, Microsoft is, blowing it. They're not blowing it. They're getting creamed. They're doing the best job they possibly could to avoid getting crushed. And it just isn't good enough.
Yeah, no, the challenge on iterating on how you do this sharing between different devices is something that we're going to have to work on next year. WebRTC is one possible answer as a general thing, but actually doing can I send this to not just the telly, but can I send it to your iPad? Can I send it to your other non-Apple device? Can we make this stuff work? That's a challenge, and it's one that's going to get changed this year. One thing it was interesting to see for me was that seeing the audio guys switch away from supporting the both Apple Docs and the AirPlay-like stuff, and just going to Bluetooth for their speaker gadgets now. I'm interested to see what Robert picks up from that at CES.
Yeah, how ubiquitous is stereo Bluetooth?
My car has it. So.
Yeah, it's been standardized a while and it's showing up in the devices. But the thing is, the iPhone dock, on everything stopped working when you had the iPad because they wouldn't fit in the slot. They just changed the connector again, whereas that's going to have a crossover there from the manufacturers having to deal with a whole bunch of crap like that,
That-
and Bluetooth getting good enough to actually use, so you can just walk into the room and use the device.
Bluetooth is one way to solve it. AirPlay is another. JBL is betting on both. So Harman, who makes most of the speakers in the world, is betting on both. I have a speaker down in a plug downstairs, and I AirPlay to that, and I believe you can Bluetooth to a future version.
Okay, so my prediction is that we will be buying an AirPrint printer this year.
AirPrint.
You mean a 3D printer?
No, just an AirPrint printer. AirPrint compatible. In
What's
other words,
AirPrint?
You already, how
it's
come you
it's
don't
the
already have one
AirPlay
of
for
those?
printers.
Well, that was the first thing they did with ZeroConf. That's been out for 5 years.
Yeah, and I have not bought one in 5 years.
Right.
I predict that.
There you go.
That's-
Actually, 10 years. Jesus, when did we
I
do that?
predict that that's going to be the most likely not to come true in the next year. But if you said I'm going to have a new kind of AirPlay 3D printer in my house, now that is an interesting idea. Bree Pettis, are you listening?
Okay, well, that was my prediction. That's the only thing that I can predict that I know is going to happen because I'm
You're about to
sick
buy a printer.
of
Did
trying.
Did you already order it? Is that why
I
that?
think,
No.
I think we could predict that Apple stock will rise again from its current $510 back to the 700s.
You're predicting that?
I would expect that would be true. Yeah.
You mean after we go off the cliff and then come back?
Yep. I think Apple's due for a significant rebound.
Okay.
Huh.
Just
Well,
because their Q1 results are going to be awesome. Did you see that they can't make enough iPad minis for China today?
You think?
So
That was my number two. by
The
the
results
way.
are going to
Remember?
be awesome, probably all year.
Well, isn't
And,
everyone tanking at the moment because
I
of
still see the stock staying down there.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think it'll
Yeah.
go up, but I don't know about 700s. Not
Well,
not quickly. But I do
there's a
think
lot of
that,
weird year-end stuff happening at the moment, so everyone's going down because people are selling off because of all this capital gains worry. So all the tech stocks seem to be going down at the moment.
not everybody. I'm not allowed to comment, but not everybody.
You know,
Okay.
Well, none of us
There's
are
a
allowed to
reason that
comment.
we sponsor the show. It makes the stock move, baby.
On that note, I'm going to start in reverse order here because I'd like to do it before everybody hangs up on me. I want to thank our producer and director, Tina Chase Gillmor.
Put her on air.
Yeah.
Yay, Tina.
Why don't you peek into the shot there for a second? Thank you.
Yay!
This show has undergone an enormous transformation as a result of her work. And the best proof of that are the two shows we did this year without her. Okay.
Where's my microphone?
I want to thank Robert Scoble. Robert Scoble has been, Robert and I go way back to a pair of scissors and a waste paper basket with Jim Fossett hovering over it.
Holding my mouse.
That's right.
You should now. You
The
gotta
first
tell that
feeble
story.
attempt at shutting Robert up.
You gotta tell that
obviously
story.
didn't work.
You got to tell that story.
Well, there was this. There's the company. I can't tell this story. Suffice to say that Robert blew a bunch of NDAs on some Microsoft stuff before he went to work for Microsoft.
Yeah.
And Jim Fossett, who was the Fossett of Fossett Publishing, came over to Robert's cubicle and took his, I believe it was your mouse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and took out a pair of scissors and cut it and dropped it in the wastebasket. So I've seen a lot from Robert over the years. He's worked for Dave Weiner, with Dave Weiner. He's a friend of Dave Weiner's to this day, which is a feat that few have accomplished.
Yep.
By the way, I used to be a friend of his, and hope to.
I'm not a friend on Facebook, by the way, because he deleted his account on Facebook.
That's right.
So.
But what I want to say about Robert to his face is that you've become an extraordinary leader in the internet and technology industries, and I'm honored that you continue to be on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Marks, he goes. I remember him using, what was that, what's it, a Windows machine or an Apple machine to broadcast the first BloggerCon from Harvard.
Oh, it was a Mac, yeah.
Yeah, it was a Mac. Kevin goes back to, he worked at Apple, he worked at Google, he worked at BT, he works now at Salesforce. And he works very hard in the areas that I have absolutely no faith and trust in, around open standards and the like. And he's frozen up now as a result of this. He turned his video off. Well, I'm sorry that he's gone, but it's been a great pleasure to have him on the show. I also want to thank Keith Tier, who's a new